Hey everyone, welcome to the Naughty Shaman podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Carlisle, and I can't wait to dive in to a world where the sacred meets the wild and keeps things totally real. In each episode, we are going to dive into what it truly means to live a radiant life that is unapologetically real. And if you're ready to get started, so am I. Hello, 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 luminous ones. It is Natalie Carlisle coming at you live from the Naughty Shaman recording studios here in Bethany Beach, Delaware. That sounds so fancy, right? Thank you for joining us. So in this episode of the Naughty Shaman podcast, I am continuing the story of how I became a shaman. And thank you to the tribe members that have asked for this. I hope you're enjoying the series. It's about the sacred rebellion. So put on your seatbelt, get a cup of tea or a glass of wine, and settle in for some wild storytelling tonight. And thank you for joining me. So I want to begin this story. I think we left off where I was going to go to Kent State University. And, Corey had died, had graduated. I don't even know how. I spoke at graduation. I don't even know how I did that. I was a mess inside and somehow putting on such a strong facade. I guess I had had a lot of practice. I don't know. So anyway, got through that. And I don't even think I filled out a college application. I'm not even sure how I got into Kent State University, but I grew up in Kent, went to Kent, and that's what you do. So I'm living on campus and I am now not living with my parents anymore. I'm not in my high school framework anymore. And I was like, I am so done with this good girl facade, like the president of everything and being good and doing the right thing and being a role model and being the youngest leader ever for student councils and whatever. I was done with it. I was done with being good and kind and the leader. And I went on a holy rebellion. And boy, did I. Plus, I was grieving and I couldn't deal with that. And so my plan was subconsciously, of course, to completely annihilate anything that was good in my life. I remember I was dating this like perfect, amazing human being. I think Alex. I was dating Alex, this most wonderful being on the face of the earth. And I remember I probably even told him, like, you're too good for me, because I was so blinded and numb and in pain and into this rebellion that I was going to go on against all things good. So yeah, I went my own way and started forging a new path. I just wanted to light a match on my old life and never look back. And I thought that would be a great plan for not feeling any more pain. Also, alcohol's awesome for that. And so are drugs, and so is loud music and late nights. And so all these things that I discovered could make me numb. And I was numb for many years. So I go off to Kent State University. I remember going to freshman orientation and really the only thing I took away from this freshman orientation was, and if you fail a class, you can take it again and get another chance at it, blah, 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 blah. I stopped listening after that, but I was like, okay, cool. So I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to do my best and let the chips fall where they may. So off I go. At Kent State University, after one semester, I got a letter right during Christmas, right during the holidays. And my mom is gone down to Houston where my brother lived. And I have to tell my father, who never had the opportunity to go to college or anything. He's a self-made man. He started his career climbing trees for Davy Tree, like badass, dangerous shit. And then, worked his way up in the company. It was back in the day when you could still do that. So this man is like my idol. I have to go home and like tell him about this letter that says, and I'm reading it to him. Natalie, thank you so much for attending Kent State University. Please don't ever come back. You have graduated, or no, you have failed out of Kent State with a 0.29 grade point average. I think I went to one physics class. So that was the 0.29. So 0.29 grade point average, and you're kicked out. And good luck with your life. And that was it. And I remember I was thinking, man, I've never really seen my dad mad, but if it's ever going to happen, it's going to be like right now. And he didn't say anything for what seemed like an eternity. And then he said something that shocked me. He said, let's go to dinner. So we go up to the Rusty Nail in Kent, Ohio, and get a steak. And I'm smoking cigarettes and he's smoking cigarettes. And I'm just ranting and raving about, how could they kick me out? This is ridiculous. Like, what about freshman forgiveness? I wasn't forgiven. Like, we should sue them. And I'm smoking cigarettes and indignant and just filled with righteousness. And he just listened. How he listened to me be so ridiculous, I have no idea. But he did. Maybe he had a lot of practice too. And so, classy guy, paid for dinner. And like over coffee, he looks at me in his calm, quiet way with those oceanic blue-gray eyes. And he says, Natalie, never lie about who you are or what you've done. You have to take ownership for your part in this. And if you can't, you will never be successful. And the mark of a successful person is not how many times they fail, but what you choose to do next is going to speak volumes of the kind of person you become. Like, what? How old am I now? 50? I still remember these words from when I was 19, right? Crazy good advice, crazy solid parenting. And I thought, okay, it was like he kicked me between the eyes and I was like, okay, yeah, I probably should have gone to class, probably should have turned in a paper. There's a lot that I could have done to shape my own destiny here. It is not Kent State's fault. So I got off the righteous tirade of being the victim and started to really understand that I needed help. And my parents knew I needed help. None of us knew what to do. So they did what they do. They shipped me off to my brother's house and like, you figure it out. My brother had a brand new baby. So I go down to Houston, Texas to be the nanny. And maybe I'm going to go to community college. And I don't know what I'm going to find myself. Or my brother's going to impart some words of wisdom. Now, my brother and I hadn't lived in the same house since I was 6 years old because that's when he went to college. So I hardly know this guy. He's married to a woman I also hardly know. And now they have a baby, which I'm kind of like, ooh, sticky. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, I have nothing else to do and I can't live at home. So I'm going to go down there, get my act together. So I go down there, I'm a nanny, and I'll be damned if not just a few weeks into this whole experience after my horrible rebellion at Kent State, where I was just drinking and numbing and staying up all night and sleeping all day, studying tarot and reading tarot cards all night, or going to raves down in Akron, or smoking lots of cigarettes and staying up all night with my friends is really what we did back in the day. It was all the rage. And drank a lot, and found my place in situations where I shouldn't be. And I was promiscuous because I didn't care anymore. I was depressed and I didn't want to live. I kind of half thought, maybe I'll just go join Corey. It seems like a good idea. He was young. Maybe I'll be a rebel and die young too. And we can wander off into the afterlife happily ever after. I wasn't sure who I was or what I was doing, but it was dark, covered over by a lot of laughter and alcoholic adventure. And, now looking back and how we treat sexual assault, like I look back on that time and think, gosh, the amount of times that probably women in my generation, and certainly in my own experience, we were sexually assaulted is astonishing. And we didn't even count it as that then. But I've learned through my healing journey to count it now, because it happened and it was real and you can heal it. So these were dark times, to say the least. And so I come out of that and move into Houston where I'm like, oh my God, and I can't smoke in the house and I can't do any of these drinking things and I can't do all these things I'm used to doing on my own. And I have to follow these rules in my brother's house and no. And then watch this 2-year-old who's pretty sticky and into like SpaghettiOs out of a can and won't eat anything else. And I fell in love with this kid. Daniel, he's my nephew, my first nephew. And I fell in love with this kid. And I get down there and find out, like on a random Tuesday, that I haven't had my period in months. And I'm thinking, oh my God, leave it to me to not only have this period in my life be I failed out of college, but then I got knocked up when I wasn't wanting to, wasn't planning on it, whatever. And sure enough, that was the case. And I remember telling my brother's wife, and like these people, like angels, show up for me in the least expected places, right? So she catches me in the bathroom peeing on a stick, and I'm like, and she's like, no. And I said, yeah. First thing she said was, you got to call your parents. And I was like, hell no, I'm not calling my parents. Like, they've had enough trouble with yours truly. Like, I don't want to burden them. This is something you got to suck it up and do alone. And she said, no. And in that moment, she probably, again, saved my life. She doesn't even probably realize what a big deal that was, but she kept me from isolating in a time where I just wanted to put my head under the covers and literally die, shrivel up, and just vanish. I didn't necessarily have suicidal thoughts, but I didn't want to be alive anymore because I couldn't see a way forward. And so I just felt stuck and I just wanted to vanish. I think that's the best way to describe this moment. And she made me stand up, call my mom, call my dad, tell them what was going on, tell my brother. Oh my gosh, the embarrassment of this moment, the torture, the hell, the shame, the guilt, the indecision. Like, it was a huge, horrible moment, right? And I remember I called my parents and my dad again. My dad is like my hero. He shows up and is like, Natalie, it's your body. You have to live with the decision that you make, and you have your whole life ahead of you. And I personally don't think that you're ready to be in charge of another life because you're not doing your own very much right now. So I love you no matter what. We love you. And that was like, again, top-notch parenting from my dad. Like, he probably said 10 things to me his whole life, but the 10 things he said, like, changed my life. And so, I made my decision. My sister-in-law and family were there, and my the guy I was dating at the time was there. Like, it was, of all things that were horrible, it was pretty okay, even though it's terribly difficult. And there was something about that moment where I felt like my body had been taken away. I guess it was like a disassociation or something, because I just felt like, well, my body is now trash because it's done this horrible thing, and I'm trash because I've done this horrible thing, and I'm pretty much a horrible person and should vanish. So I'm in Houston feeling again all the ways in my childhood again, like, and again, my grandmother dream, like this woman, she comes in another dream and just holds me, sings her little song. And I know somehow it's all going to be okay. I don't even speak spirit guide singing language, but I knew somehow everything was going to be okay. Plus, I had my family. I still had my family supporting me by some miracle, right? So the love went for a long way. So this is the story of Kent State failing out, and then the story of Texas and the shit show that was. And then I want to share 2 more stories of what's happening in reality. So 2 more stories in my reality. After I was in Houston for a while and going nowhere fast, I got a phone call from my friend Hillary. Now, Hillary, somebody I went to high school with, she calls up and is like, we did tarot cards and all the things that were so magical and fun. So Hillary is like, hey, I got a job for us in Kelly's Island and a place to live. Let's all go to Kelly's Island. And we're going to live in this shack and work in a bar, and it should be awesome. And I'm like, great. So I leave Houston, go live on an island, and pretty much drink 70 pounds of weight onto my body because we worked at a bar. We got like free drinks and we got like half off food. So we just drank. We didn't even bother to eat most of the time, but all that alcohol really took a toll. So we had a crazy summer on Kelly's Island, meeting all kinds of characters, male strippers, coke dealers, millionaires, yacht. Like you can't imagine the shit that goes down on these islands up in Lake Erie. So anyway, it was a crazy summer for a 19, 20-year-old. And I was waitressing and I was terrible at it. Like I would get your coffee and then forget to bring the cream, or I'd forget to put your order in. And 5 hours later, you'd be like, where's my stuff? But I was great getting to know the people. Like I loved chatting with the people, but I was a very terrible server. And so I'm wasting away in Margaritaville up on Kelly's Island. Oh, he's in the softball league. So we played the other islands, which was fun. Other than that, I had nothing. And so wasting away up there. And my father, again, out of the ether, my first spirit guide was probably my dad. He somehow senses a disturbance in the forest. So he gets in his sailboat and he sails over to Kelly's Island. He taught himself to sail, by the way, by reading a book. So amazing man. Anyway, he sails it to Kelly's Island. He's sitting in my section where I'm the server. And I'm terrible. And he's watching me be terrible at this job. And he's watching me like 70 pounds heavier serving. And he's watching me like ruin my life. And I'm so acutely aware of this self-made man watching his daughter, who had every privilege, just shit it all away, right? And I'm just like, I can't figure out how to stop being a horrible person, Dad. It's all I could think of was, I'm so sorry. I can't figure out how to stop being horrible. And so at the end of my shift, I think he finally got his coffee. He says to me, look, Natalie, I see what you're doing here, and it's okay. You could do this for the rest of your life. You really could. A lot of people do, and it's fine. Or you could go back to college and graduate in 4 years on the dean's list. This is your choice right now, and I need an answer by tomorrow. And I remember smoking cigarettes again because it was all the rage. And I remember thinking it over, having coffee and cigarettes, going, I'm not sure. It's pretty fun here. Can't believe like this gift from heaven comes to my table and is like, you have a second chance at life, Natalie. And I'm like, yeah, let me think about it. I'm going to go do some shots of vodka and think about it overnight. So, I did what you do when you're feeling horrible about yourself. I got shit-faced, made out with the ferry boat man, and got home at like 3 a.m. and looked in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror a long time. And it reminded me of looking in the mirror, looking for Corey. But this time I was looking in the mirror and I was looking for me. And I was like a million miles away. I may as well have been in another dimension. Because the me that was me was gone. It got swallowed up in the rebellion. I didn't even know what I was rebelling against anymore. It was a rough night of soul searching, and without any sleep, I went to the marina in the morning at sunrise, and my dad was having coffee on the boat, like he did. And he said, did you make your choice? And I said, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if I'm good enough. And I just started to cry. And my dad didn't say a word, but he just sat there with me. He didn't run, he didn't judge, he didn't say anything. He just let me cry. Well, for what felt like an hour, it was probably like 5 minutes, but it felt like a cry that my soul needed to cry for a long time. And so then I went to Westminster College because, again, my friend Hillary filled out my college application. That's top secret. Don't tell Westminster. So I went to this like Amish town, this Presbyterian college. Me, like, my life story now. I'm there with all these folks that like carry the Bible around and have since they were born and have never done anything wrong and are like so good and go to church every Sunday. And then there's like me showing up on the scene 1 year older than everyone else in my class because I'd failed out of college and took this weird time off to go live on an island and drink my life away. And thank God that plan didn't work out. So I show up in Amish country on a Presbyterian college, and it was absolutely awesome for me because religion and spirituality were always a topic of discussion. Everywhere you went, people were talking about dreams or what happens when people die and what is heaven and what is hell and do they exist and why? And I wonder, and what do you think God really is? And what about Jesus? And what about this section of the Bible? Like, what do you think Revelations is literal? So these conversations were everywhere. And I loved them. So I dove into school, hook, line, and sinker after that. It was the right environment for the right girl at the right time. So Westminster College was amazing. And it was funny because after I got there, Hillary had gotten me into college, and then Hillary failed out of Westminster. So Hillary is like this little angel that just showed up in my life to change the trajectory of it wildly throughout my whole life. So Westminster, graduated 4 years, kept my promise to dad, joined a sorority, and everything kind of worked out. Here I am. But before we get to the working out thing, that's what's happening in reality. Now I want to tell you these 4 dreams. This is a little bit longer podcast, and I apologize, but I want to overlay what was going on in my dream life that was so nutty nut about this time, okay? So first dream in the sequence of 4 is in high school. Hillary and I are driving around in my golden convertible LeBaron, Chrysler LeBaron, putting on lipstick, smoking cigarettes. We're smoking cigarettes when cool shit's going down. I don't know why, because it was the rage. But anyway, we're going to school, we're doing the thing, and I tell Hillary, I'm like, Hillary, girl, I had the weirdest dream last night. So I tell her about this dream. In the dream, I had come upon a building, like an underground building that had like 4 doorways down into it that I intuitively knew was north, south, east, west. So you'd go down into this underground temple. And as I walked into this temple, I could see this long reflecting pool. And it was all like mossy and like leaves were in it. It was dark and it was dreary. It was like a nasty pool. And there were cobwebs everywhere as if time had passed. So there was this reflecting pool at the base, at the center of this beautiful underground temple. And then I looked up one of the stairways, like to the east, and I could see up the stairs there was this throne sitting there with like lion paws that came around on the handles and lion paws for the feet and a big lion head where you would rest your head. It was like way better than the throne in Game of Thrones. It was this huge lion-headed throne, right? And I was like, that's cool. But again, it was like covered in dust and cobwebs, like time had passed. So for totally intuitive reasons, I know that the thing to do here in this underground temple is to like do the nesty plunge and face plant into the reflecting pool. So I like kind of fell right into the reflecting pool underwater. And when I come up out of the water, the lion headed throne has come to life. And it's this great big golden lion. And he comes down with his big paws down the stairs to like sniff me over with his big whiskers and his muzzle. And he has a scroll in his hand. And this lion rolls out this scroll, like a really long old scroll. And it's got like stars and symbols and the pyramids and mathematical equations and orbits and ellipticals and numbers and writing I've never seen before, like this vertical writing. It was wild looking, this scroll, and it was like forever long. It was so long. And I cannot tell you for the life of me what that lion told me, but I remember looking in his eyes and a language, like there was a transference of data. And he was teaching me in this moment, like all the mysteries of the universe and how we came to be here and what it was all about and where it was all going. And it was like this complete data exchange through our eyeballs, a language that was like telepathy, but words weren't even needed, if that made sense. It was like a download and an upload and an exchange of data. And I woke up out of that dream like, whoa. So I turned to Hillary and was like, isn't that a crazy dream? And she is like looking at me with her eyes wide. And she goes, shut the hell up. And I'm like, why? She said, because I had the same dream last night. I was like, shut up. So in her dream, same temple, same pool, same throne, except in her dream, I was sitting on that throne and it was like alive and vibrant. There was music playing and the sunlight was coming in and people were walking by laying flowers around the temple. And I was crying tears of blood. And so we got to school and pulled into the parking lot like, whoa, what does this mean? What does that mean? Hillary and I had the same dream, same night, different perspectives, different timelines. What? That question of what does this mean just pulled me further down the rabbit hole, further into tarot cards, further into the occult, further into Ouija boards, further into runes, further into magic, further into Christianity, witchcraft, Judaism, like you name it. I wanted to know it. So this is how I ended high school. And this was my very secret life because it was weird to show this side, right? So that's one dream. Many years later, not many, just a couple actually. Let's see, the next dream that I want to tell is about the four crows. So this might have been my freshman year in college. So just a couple years later after this dream, maybe a year, I had a dream that I keep in my dream journal. And I'm walking down this path in the dream, and there are three crows sitting on a branch in front of me. And this one crow that's like, caw, 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 right beside me. And I'm walking and I'm like, trying to get this crow out of my face. Whatever. So finally, this crow flies up and takes its place as four on this branch that's over the path I'm walking on. And I noticed there's this little tiny scroll tied to its leg. And I was like, no, get the hell out. That's so cool. All of a sudden, this crow flies in front of me, materializes into this gorgeous African-American woman who's like 8 feet tall. And she's got this scroll in her hand. And again, the scroll unrolls. And she and I have this total, and she has like grayish, oldish eyes, right? So she's just like downloading all this information. I'm like, whoa. And I'm drinking it in and I'm understanding like the great cosmic mystery. You know, I feel the truth of it in my bones during this dream. And then, you know, I think, how did that dream? Oh, I know how it ended. Yeah, we totally made out. She ended up being like some kind of hermaphrodite. She turned into tree and we made, I don't know. It was a wild ending, like filled with life and all these symbols and making out and passion. And then I woke up. It was crazy. And I write it all down anyway. About a year after that, I have another dream. And these dreams, like it's wild to go back and read them. Anyway, the third dream that I want to talk about is this dream about the guide. So in this dream, I think I was a sophomore, junior in college. And I had been healing through sweat lodges and other things offered at my very cool school of Westminster College in Pennsylvania. Through sweat lodges and great teachers and writing, studying English, I had been healing my Corey loss, right? Trying to do it appropriately, not through just drinking my way out of it. So I was healing and doing all these sweat lodges. And during this time, I'd been making like deerskin medicine wheels, and with yellow and black and red and white and feathers that I'd found in the forest in my wanderings, because I was outside for hours and hours every day, no matter the weather. And so in this dream, I had this dream 4 nights in a row. And on the first night, I dreamt of a lake up high in the mountains. It was like a desert lake and couldn't see anything from down in the lake. It was just walls of desert around. And there was a hooded figure in like a brown monk's robe, and I never saw his face, but it was like this monk's robe. And so I walk and I'm with him and he's quiet and he's like, walk with me. So we walk around this lake and he again starts to tell me the mysteries of what it is. And he's listening to my stories and helping me heal and telling me about the cosmos. Very much a teacher. And we get about 3/4 of the way around the lake. And I see this like altar made of sticks, like a stick shelf kind of a thing out in the middle of the desert. And he says to me, go up there and see if the people have left anything for you. And I'm thinking, A, who are the people? And B, why would they leave anything for this gringa? So anyway, I go up there, and in this little shelf is this precious gift of a deer hide, a white deer hide, which is really rare. And I thought, oh my God, how precious is this gift? It's so sacred. And I thank the people, even though I can't see them. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I take the deer hide and I'm like, look, oh my gosh. And he's like, that's a gift for you from the people. And then we finish our walk. The second night, I have this dream, same lake, same guy, hooded figure, same walk around the lake, and more talking, more healing, slower pace. And again, we get there 3/4 around the lake, and he says, go see if the people have left you a gift. So I go up there, and on the second night, I received this gift of a calabash bowl with these etchings around it, like a gourd bowl. And it's filled with these red and black seeds that have been kind of made into a necklace. And I have no idea what they are, but they look precious and symbolic and magical. And I'm thank you, thank you, thank you to the people, whoever you are. And I go back down. I said, look. He said, that's for you. So then the third night comes. Same guy, same lake, and we go on the walk. And again, 3/4, go check the gifts. I go up there. It's a God's eye. I don't know if you were born in the 70s or from the 70s or not, but there was this cool yarn art that you could make with taking 2 sticks, like an inking cross, and then weaving colored thread in and out of them. And it made what we called a God's eye. So this third gift on this altar from the people was a God's eye. I'm not even joking. Like, you can't make this shit up. It's crazy what happened to me, and I love it. So I was like, wow. Like, I took this like God's eye with all these rainbow colors, and I'm like, oh wow, thank you. And then the fourth night of the dream, the last night I dream about this fellow. I go see this teacher. I still can't see his face. And we get there, and he's like, this night you have to go alone. I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, you must. And so I did. And the sun was setting. And I had never noticed that it was nighttime when we were walking. Like, by the time we finished our walk, it was dark. I never noticed that until tonight when I have to do it alone. So I'm walking around this lake in my dream, and it's getting darker, and I'm getting like a little bit nervous, and I can hear my heartbeat. And then I start to hear footsteps, kind of creepy crawly behind me. And something inside me was like, don't turn around. But I did start walking a little bit faster. Then I start running, because by now I'm like in full panic mode, and I'm running around the second half of that lake like, just wanted to finish it, just finish, get around the lake, talk to the teacher, see what the hell's going on. But then I think, I get to the altar and I'm running, and I'm like, maybe I should check, even though I'm freaking out right now. Maybe I'll run up there and check real quick. So I run up this hill, go to the altar, and on the altar are these 2 huge eagle wings. Huge. And they have these black feathers along the top rim. And each feather is laid down red, light red, orange, light orange, green, all the colors of the rainbow, thousands and thousands of feathers in each wing, all the colors of the rainbow. And another wing, same size, thousands and thousands of feathers, all the colors of the rainbow. And I just started to weep. I'm starting to weep now just thinking of it. And I grabbed these heavy wings, and I was like, I've got to meet the people. I want to thank you. I want to thank you. I don't understand this, but I want to thank you. And I found myself walking up the hill with these eagle wings in my hand. and I got up over the ridge, and there were these huge wooden doors, and I pushed them open with all my might with these 2 eagle wings in my hand above my head. And before me were like thousands of people like partying. And they were like, yeah. And I lift these wings in the hand and they're like, oh, hey, you. Yeah. And it was an amazing feeling of celebration, of joy, of love, of peace, of like everything I could imagine. And then I woke up. Powerful dream series. I call that one the guide. And so the final dream that I had was a very simple dream. And this is the last dream I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to sew it all together in conclusion. So the last dream I want to share in the series is this dream of, I don't know when it was, but I was still at Westminster College in my dorm room, and I had this dream of laying in the grass and warm, happy in the sun, in like a white dress, just like a pure dream of just warm golden sunlight, and a white daisy just went and bloomed right in front of me. And I was like, whoa. So I'm laying down, it's beside me, I'm looking at it sideways, I'm like, what? And then it turned its face to the sun, like drinking in that sunlight, and it grew a little bigger. And then it turned its face to me, and it said, I could hear it again. It wasn't like it had a mouth and eyeballs or anything like that, but I could sense it saying to me, I promise. And then I woke up and I was like, who's promising? Was the daisy promising? Was it God promising? What is a promise? Do I have to make a promise? Like, I don't understand it in the moment, but it was an I promise. It was about the promised land. Like, I didn't know, but I felt the promise. I felt the promise made to me. And my takeaway many years later was that this was a promise from Spirit. So then in real life, I'm working at SeaWorld, dipping some French fries in the fryer like you do. And I get a phone call at work from, guess who? Hillary, the magical angel that shakes up my life and puts me exactly where I'm supposed to be in my path. She calls and is like, Allie, we're going to Vegas. And I'm like, why are we going to Vegas? That sounds awful. She's like, no, north of Vegas, there's Shoshone Indian Reservation. They're doing protests. We're going to drive down to Austin, Texas. We're going to pick up Debbie, and then we're going to go out on the land for like 5 days and pray. Quit your job. Let's go. And I'm like, okay. So I quit my job, got in the car, travel across country with Hillary. We pick up Debbie in Austin. It's so great to see everybody. And I'm telling them all these dreams that I've had, the ones I've just told you. And they're like, whoa, that's cool. And then they're telling me their dreams. We're like, whoa, that's cool. We had this great reunion. So we get to the Shoshone Indian Reservation like 3 a.m. We pitch our tents. We're bleary-eyed and exhausted, and we waking up for sunrise ceremony the next day. It's like the kickoff of this great healing festival that's going to happen out there in the desert. So we wake up. We're like, oh my God, I don't even have coffee because you're camping and no one built fires. So we're just like a mess, right? But I've got my hood. It's cold. I've got my blanket wrapped around me. We're in this fire circle. So we're in a circle around this huge bonfire. And the guy says to the winds of the south, to the winds of the east, to the winds of the north. He's like opening sacred space. First time I ever saw it like this, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And he's like makes a big deal about like, now that the circle is cast, like this is a sacred circle and none may leave the circle, and it holds tight, and it was a big deal about this circle. So I was like, okay, I'm like really going to do a good job at this ceremony because I could feel like the intense sacredness of it. So I made a pact to get it perfect. When all of a sudden these headlights come up. Right? It's just before dawn. These headlights come up, and this woman gets out of what looks like a Cadillac Escalade with her entourage. And all I see is like this cloak go, whoom, this red cloak go around like she's bundling up. And I'm just trying not to look at her because I'm paying attention to ceremony because I'm being a good shaman student, damn it. So I'm totally trying to ignore this distraction. And she ends up standing right next to me, between me and my friend Debbie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is so rude. I'm totally triggered. I'm like, my skin is on fire. I'm irritated that she's late. I'm irritated that she's loud. I'm irritated that she's not doing it perfectly. I'm irritated that she's between me and my friend Debbie, and we wanted to have this moment together. And so I'm like a mess. Meanwhile, everyone else who's not a mess is making offerings of tobacco and sage and sugar or whatever, the lavender, into the fire and making prayers. So we've all got our tobacco. And I'm waiting my turn, right? So all of a sudden, the woman next to me doesn't wait for her turn. No, she goes right into the center of the fire and she turns away from me. So all I see is the back of her red cloak. So she goes around the fire saying, she was just up north and visiting the white buffalo calf that had just been born. How this was a long-awaited prophecy of the white buffalo calf returning, the mother, the white buffalo calf woman returning. She tells the story. She's walking around the fire, taking her time, elegant, magical. And she throws her offerings into the fire, and the fire goes up really high, like magic. And she comes around from behind the fire, and you'll never guess who it was. Now, this is in real life, by the way. It's the African-American woman from my dream, except for she's not 8 feet tall. She's like 6 feet tall, maybe taller. And, but it's her face, it's her body, it's her shoulders, it's her arms. I'm like, oh, snap. So I just sort of shut down. I remember I just threw my tobacco into the fire, like, ooh, I didn't even know what was going on at that point. So the fire ends. She's chatting with people and whatever. And I'm like 4 feet away from her, just staring at her like this. And she comes up to me after, I don't know how long, a minute, and she just grabs my, and she goes, what do you want? And I'm looking in her eyes and I just start to cry because they're the eyes of the woman that I had the eyeballs with in my dream. And she told me, so I start telling her, I had a dream about you, except for you were a crow and then you were a woman and we had these things and you were telling me about the universe and your eyes. And then we made out and there was trees and I don't know what's going on right now. And I'm bawling and bawling and bawling. And she's just standing there holding on to me. And she looks at me like this. You did dream about me, she said. My name is Shaman Standing Crow. And you're part of the reason I'm here today. You called me here. I was like, shut the fuck up. She said, I'm giving a talk tonight in a temple. Here's where it is. She drew on my hand. Here's a little map through the desert to go find this secret, weird temple. Like now we would never send our children to do this, right? But I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'll be out in the middle of the desert from this map you drew on my hand. That sounds totally reasonable. So I tell my friend Hillary and Deb, I'm like, we're going here. They're like, okay. So off we go. Found this temple. Guess what temple it was? It was the one from Hillary in my dream. 4 doors, north, south, east, west. Water in the middle. There was a bowl, a circle bowl, a big bowl of water in the middle of the temple. The temple had these copper rings over the roof of it that you could realign for different ceremonies. And guess what was in the eastern corner of it? A lion-headed throne. Hand to God, I have a picture of this temple. I have a picture of me sitting in the lion-headed throne in my office over there. And it was real. Magic was real for the very first time in my life. And I sat down in this circle of sacred people just like me who were called there for some unknown reason. And Shaman gave this talk about the Rainbow Tribe. And this was in the 90s, right? So the Rainbow Tribe, that over the next decades, the Rainbow Tribe would be gathering. People from all walks of life would be receiving teachings because now is the time for the teachings to come to the planet. And that these rainbow warriors, luminous warriors, would be called together in groups. And that these rainbow warriors, these luminous warriors, would be here, called together to light the way to a new earth. I was 20 the first time I heard that prophecy. I've heard it several times since from many other Indigenous people. And it's an incredible thing to be a part of. It's an incredible thing to wake up to the knowing that you are a part of this. And if you're listening to this podcast, and you are, you are a part of this. You are either getting the calling or have gotten the calling to be a part of this luminous army, to be a luminous warrior, different than the warriors we know of the past. This is a warrior not bred to conquer over, but a warrior to fight the ignorance within. A luminous warrior, the one who has no fight, the one who has no fight, the one in flow, the one at peace, the one who remembers the war, remembers the hardship, remembers the pain, and chooses now peace, chooses now unity, one with all things. And this is the luminous warrior. The warriors that stand on the edge of ignorance and push further, further into the unknown. Pioneers of consciousness. Pioneers in education, in food production, in human psychological development, spiritual development. As luminous warriors, we go further. And this is the calling. And we're finding each other now. We're finding each other now. So, this is the point in my journey when I realized, yeah, I'm magic. And it's real. It's just as real as the air I'm breathing. Spiritual reality is just another reality. And you can wake up to it, just like waking up in the morning out of bed. And it was the first time in my life I let that be okay with me. I didn't fight it anymore. I set down the sword of fighting who I was in this moment. At least a little bit, because then Shaman Standing Crow wanted me to move to Austin with her and study, and I was like, that's great. So I stuck out with her for a few days in the desert and learned and listened to some of the legends and the stories and some of the traditions and some of the prayer ceremonies, did some healing. And it was about the next day we were going to go back to Austin to begin my studies. And I packed the car at 2 a.m. and I snuck out in the middle of the night because I was so afraid that if I went down this path at 21, I think I was 21 at the time. If I went down this path at 21, I was so afraid that I wouldn't be normal. And then I was so afraid if I wasn't normal and I was really like this wild, witchy shaman woman in Austin, that no one would love me. Because I still had that big old wound of maybe I'm just that big alien weirdo that's not lovable. So I better act the part. So that's the next chapter in the story, is when I pretend to be normal, and it lasts for like a hot minute. So thank you for joining me today. I know this was a long one. Lots of stories, lots of dreams, lots of realities that collided in a single moment in the desert in northern Nevada. And I'm offering this story to let you know that there are moments in our lives where realities cross, and it's happening more and more often now. It was super rare back in the day, but now it's more common because the veils are thinning. So if you're one of these delightful folks who have the crossovers happening, you're not alone. You're definitely not a big old weirdo. Well, maybe you're a weirdo, but you're my kind of weirdo, and I like that. And we've got a tribe full of weirdos all over the country and in Central and South America. So you're not alone. You're definitely not alone if you've got this overlap happening, if your realities are merging and it's unsettling, then we're here. Like, you can reach out to us and talk about this. We'll get it going. We'll get the path. Because what I believe you're being called to, and what I learned for myself, is I was being called into training. I needed training. I had a lot of weird, spooky, kooky natural gifts, and I didn't know what they were or why they were or what to even do with them, what they were even called. And I needed training at that time. And so if you find yourself in need of teachers, we are here. We are here, and we will all learn together. We have a circle tribe. It's not based on hierarchy. So check us out, naughtyshaman.com. Thank you for tuning in. It means a lot to me. All right. Peace, my loves. Thanks for sticking out for this long one. You're like a true luminous warrior. Bye. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we are so grateful. Please reach out to us. Let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in our future episodes. Get in touch in the comments because we love to hear from you. And you can reach us on social media.